This is the Book Deal Podcast Monthly Takeover by your host, Natasha Rai. I'll be bringing you even more debut and seasoned authors as they talk about their path to publication.
The Book Deal Podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and waters which it's recorded on and pays respect to their elders past, present and emerging.
Michelle See-Tho is a freelance writer and copywriter. She has had articles and stories published in Kill Your Darlings, Meandrin, Overland, and the Big Issue Fiction Edition. Jade and Emerald, her first novel, won the 2023 Penguin Literary Prize. Hi, Michelle See-Tho. Welcome to the Book Deal Podcast.
It's great to be here, Natasha.
How are you today?
Yeah, not too bad. A little cold down here in Melbourne, otherwise okay.
I bet. And just for listeners, we are recording this quite late on a Tuesday night, so thank you for making the time.
Oh, it's not a problem at all. I'm really excited to be here.
Excellent. So I wanted to talk to you about your novel, your debut novel, Jade and Emerald, and also the process and your publication journey. But I just want to start by saying that I absolutely loved your novel and I read it in a couple of days. So how do you feel about giving me your elevator pitch for Jade and Emerald?
I would love to do that. So Jade and Emerald is the story of a lonely 12-year-old girl who forms an unlikely friendship with a older rich hedonistic socialite. Their friendship strains her relationship with her mother, which is already fraught because her mum's really strict. It covers themes of class and race, loneliness and family as well, and it's set in Australia in the 1990s.
Excellent. You've had a bit of practice at that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can talk about that as well, but that was one of the requirements for the Penguin Literary Prize.
Yes. Yeah, so this novel did win the 2023 Penguin Literary Prize. Congratulations again. Thank you. I do want to come to that, but I'm actually dying to ask you some questions about the novel itself.
Yes.
So if it's okay to start there. So the three characters, I was really drawn into the two different very relationships. I was really interested in the relationship she has with her mum and then the relationship she has with, do you say Gigi or Gigi?
Gigi.
Gigi. It is Gigi, yeah. So I'm curious as to what your starting point was. How did you start this manuscript, this novel?
I mean, I guess the idea for it kind of came to me after a long time of me trying to develop an idea for a novel. I knew that I wanted to write a novel, but I didn't really know what it was going to be about or anything like that. And I was kind of playing around with a lot of different ideas, and none of them grabbed me as a plot worthy of a novel-length book.
The ideas that you were playing with, did you have characters in mind at that time, or were you mainly playing with story?
A bit of both. I did notice that there were a lot of themes that kept recurring. So one of the big ones was loneliness. Another one was class. I often kind of had young protagonists. There wasn't really anything kind of concrete until in COVID and in the lockdown in 2021. And I do specifically remember this moment where I was sort of drying my hair and I was thinking about this idea of an unlikely friendship between a child and an adult. It's sort of built out from there.
Mm. And so out of that, what's your process? Are you a plotter or do you like to start writing scenes? How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's quite interesting because with the ideas that I'd had before Jade and Emerald that weren't really going anywhere, I felt like they were a bit more pantser-esque, and I'd sort of just write out a scene and then I wouldn't really know what to do with it after that. But with Jade and Emerald, what came to me first was that kind of friendship, and then I'd sort of built the plot around that without really writing too much, if that makes sense, sort of just going the story beats. And I think for whatever reason, that was really helpful in me kind of making it into an actual novel because I sort of knew what was going to happen.
Mm. And without giving away any spoilers, how did you conceive of this adult person who might form a friendship with a child, essentially?
Yeah, I think I was just really interested in someone who was glamorous and fabulous, but also someone who was unlike anything that my protagonist had ever met before, and almost like the opposite to her mother, and who's, you know, sort of her main parent figure in her life. I really liked, that kind of contrast between the two of them. And I also kind of was interested in the idea of like someone who could look after my narrator, but that wasn't a parent and that wasn't related to her.
Yeah, and again, I'm choosing my words very carefully. But what I loved about it was the aspects of Leyland's personality that Gigi really speaks to, that kind of fun, childlike quality, because she is very childlike in the things she loves. And she allows Leyland almost to be that 12-year-old, because when she's with her mum, and I really got that too, like I really understood that responsibility and the financial burdens and the stresses that she has to help her mum kind of not bear them, but share them, I guess. And there was this beautiful escape out of that for her with this, in this friendship.
Yeah, I'm really glad that that kind of comes across. It was kind of one of the things I wanted, I guess, like with Gigi's lifestyle, you know, her having so much money gives her the freedom to be quite childlike. Like even as an adult, she still lives with her family, which is very common in Asian cultures as well. But I think it is also a little bit of a sign of like she hasn't really matured that much. Her job was given to her by her father. She just never really have to work for anything. And so she is kind of able to be like quite childlike in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, that I definitely felt that when I was reading it. So once you started writing, kind of plotting out the beats, as you say, how did her mum's character evolve for you?
Her mother was actually kind of a contrast to Gigi in that I wanted her to have a reason to want to go with this strange adult woman. Because
Yes.
I think like it would be a bit unusual, I guess, for her to just run off with this woman that she doesn't know. So I felt the mother as like a force that sort of pushes her away. She's got like this quite fraught relationship with her mother. Her mother's really strict. She doesn't kind of let her do things that her friends might consider normal, or peers rather. And so like that kind of acts as a reason for her to get away from.
Yeah. And, you know, I was really torn between feeling a lot of sympathy and empathy for both mother and daughter, while also feeling like there were times where I'm like, this is so punitive, and feeling so bad for both of them, because that element that you talk about, loneliness, just really came through, that even together, they're both just cocooned in their own loneliness. Yeah, it was so beautifully done.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, it's really nice to hear that it kind of comes across that way, because I did kind of want there to be that element of that, and for people to also be able to empathize with the mother. Like I didn't want her to be like this antagonist throughout the whole novel, even though a lot of the time she is.
But there's a reason.
Yeah.
Which we will not go into right now.
I guess like, yeah, she's a bit more of a nuanced character than just like a outright strict mean person.
Exactly. So this was the beginning of 2021. So we'd all just come out of lockdowns, and you had this idea for this friendship, as you said, and you started plotting it, writing the story beats. So how long did it take you to have a draft of some kind?
In essence, it took about a year. But what happened was I had sort of started writing it, you know, following the structure that I had made for myself. And then I entered it into the Kill Your Darlings Mentors program. And
can you just explain that for listeners who may not know what that is?
The Kill Your Darlings Mentors program is a program that's run through the literary journal Kill Your Darlings. Essentially, it runs over 6 months. You get paired with a mentor who is a successful published author. And over the course of that time, you have a goal of producing a manuscript. You write about 10,000 words a month and then submit that to your mentor. And then you meet with them and discuss it. And, you know, you kind of get feedback on what you've written.
Yeah, it sounds great. And it's still going, right?
Yeah.
What did you have to submit to the program?
You had to submit a 10-page sample as well as like a full synopsis of your novel with spoilers and everything. And you also had to sort of give like some information, like your name and your
like a bio
experience.
type thing.
Yeah. And you also had to nominate who of the mentors that you wanted to be paired with. And so I chose Melanie Cheng.
Okay. And so when you submit your 10 pages and your synopsis, do you have to have a full manuscript written, or is that the point that over 6 months you do it with your mentor, like reading your, cool.
Yeah, so the latter, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you nominated Melanie Cheng.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, she is amazing. And she's mentoring again. So, highly recommend to nominate her for anyone who's thinking about doing the program, because it is a really amazing experience. If you've got the time and the money as well, because it is a little bit expensive, it's a really great thing to do because there aren't that many programs out there for unfinished manuscripts. I felt like there's a lot of prizes and things like that for when you finish a manuscript, but it's like getting to that point is so difficult in itself, especially when you've never done it before.
Yeah, exactly, because the program you're talking about, the KYD mentorship program and probably the Ritual Prize are the only two that you don't need a full manuscript. Yeah.
Or maybe the Wheeler Centre next chapter as well. I'm not
maybe,
sure. Yeah. But there's not that many. Yeah.
That's true. So you submitted into that, and then what happened next?
Then I got accepted into the program.
Oh, yay.
Which was really exciting. And as well, because like I say, I had like a few ideas and things like that. And I submitted this one. And then when I got accepted, I thought of that as being like a kind of sign. Like I was like, this novel could be something.
For sure. When you win something like that, it just gives you such a boost, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I did the mentorship with Mel, and like I said, it was a really great experience. She was just really kind of caring and attentive to my work, and she would give feedback on sort of the high level things like the plot and characters, but then she'd also give feedback on like the sort of line by line, like my prose, dialogue, the kind of more specific things that make up a novel.
So what do you feel looking back now? It's been 4 years even. What did you gain from that in terms of lessons you've learned writing generally?
One of the main things that I learnt was more about kind of line edits, was about similes. So I kind of used to just like kind of throw in a simile that I thought like sounded nice, or I just thought was like a pretty visual or something like that. But Mel's kind of approach was to think about what your simile can say about your character. So Leo, as an example, in the novel, the first time that Lei Ling sees Gigi's Chanel bag, she says that the Chanel logo looks like an algebra X.
Yeah.
And like for me, that's kind of like revealing that, Lei Ling's experience is largely academic. She spends a lot of time at school and then at Kumon.
Exactly.
So like the way that she sees the world is through that lens.
Actually, yeah, that's true. Now that you say that, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's actually really bringing to the front of my mind, like a lot of her observations on objects and other, like, even that the other mean girl at school whose name has totally escaped. Angela, that's it. Even when she notices things like her, like all the objects she can place it, the similes are things from her own world. Yeah, so sorry, that was really vague. I'm sure when people read it, they'll understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I mean, because even I myself, like looking back, I was just then trying to think about which ones I'd use. But, or just in general, like, to say something is pink like roses versus it's pink like flesh is like, those are quite different kind of ways of describing something.
Yeah, because even the smells, like I think she compares the smells to like things she smelled in her own apartment and on her mum and even the shampoo. Sorry, I won't bore everyone like going through every single simile, but that's a really good tip. I really like that. So by the end of your mentorship, did you have a draft or a full manuscript written?
I did. I wasn't that happy with it. I was kind of like, I'm like, I want to spend like another like year kind of going through it. But Mel said, she was like, you're ready, just go submit to places because like you never know kind of what's going to happen. And she kind of felt as well like, well, I think maybe by the end of the mentorship, she'd gotten to know me quite well. And she was like, you can't just like tinker away at it forever, which is honestly the kind of thing that I would do.
And it's so easy to do because you can always find something to fix, right?
You absolutely can. Yeah. And she said herself that these prizes aren't looking for a ready to publish piece. They're just looking for your potential. And so I got to submitting. I think I submitted to like 6 or 7 publish prizes
Mm-hmm.
and got rejected by all of them. So then when I submitted to the Penguin Literary Prize, I literally thought to myself, oh, this is just another prize that's going to reject me.
Yeah. Also, just like you did for the KYD mentorships, can you just explain what the prize is and what you win?
So the Penguin Literary Prize is a book deal. You get a $20,000 advance as well as the opportunity to publish with Penguin Random House. And so, yeah, it's everything that kind of goes along with that. And like, yeah, the editing
major
process.
prize.
Yeah, the editing process, the publicity as well.
Mm-hmm. And so under the prize, do they give you a time limit? So like when you enter it, does the terms and conditions say how soon afterwards they might publish your book? Because
I do think it depends on the book itself. Yeah. Okay. So when I won, my publisher said that she felt that it was quite close to being ready and she felt that the edits would only take a year. That was a shock to me because, yeah, like I said, I was going to say, you said it was ready.
You weren't happy.
Yeah. And we did end up meeting that 1 year deadline with like a few things changed. So now or later.
So you submitted this in 2022, right? Because if it won the 2023.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And like, I know I'm trying to work this out with you. So like most competitions, is it the full manuscript and a synopsis and a bio, right?
So it's, the full manuscript, bio, like a full sort of 1-page synopsis, and then also like a 2 to 3 sentence sort of plot description, hence the elevator pitch that I said.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you submit and you're like, well, probably nothing will happen. And so what happened? So is there a shortlist or how does that? Okay.
Yeah. So they notified me that I was on the shortlist in March, I think.
How did you find out?
Email. Meredith emailed all of us and said, congratulations, you're on the shortlist, which was so like, it was so wild because I guess like, you get emails all the time from like Maya or like bonds and stuff. And I'm so used to kind of being all like, oh yeah, that's nothing. And it was just like another email, but it was like the email.
I know. Yeah. Do you remember how you felt when you read that you were made the shortlist?
I mean, like it was like so surreal, I think, because like I just didn't expect anything at all to come out of this prize. And I do remember I was standing in my kitchen and just like looking at my phone and I sort of like doubled over because I was so shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously, a great feeling as well. It did also come with a sort of sense that I was like, has there been a mistake?
Oh, yes, the usual imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So, do you remember, or do you know how many titles were shortlisted alongside you?
Yes, there were 6 people, and all of their novels did sound really good as well. Yeah, I'd be keen to know whether or not their novels kind of got published or anything kind of happened with them afterwards.
So you said that the shortlist was March 2023, and then how long did you have to wait for them to announce the winner?
I think it was like 2 months, but I went on holiday in between, like not intentionally to not hear about the winner or whatever. But it just like happened to be that I already had a holiday booked, and so I went away and I wasn't really thinking about it. And then when I came back, it was like another month or so. Yeah, they notified me that I'd won in May, I think, 2023.
And what was that notification? Was it the email?
That was an interesting story. Yeah, because I'm a freelancer in advertising, is my sort of day job.
Yeah.
And I was at an ad agency that required me to be in the office. I was in a meeting and I got an email from Meredith that said, Michelle, I have some news for you. Can you call me?
Oh my God.
It was really vague.
But what did you think? Like, what did you think it meant? Do you remember?
I remember thinking like, I have no idea what this means. Like it could be anything. And because I was in a meeting when it happened, I was like, when is this meeting going to end? Sort of fidgety for like, the rest of the 45 minutes or whatever. And so when it did end finally, I went outside and I was like, standing in this alleyway and there was lots of construction around. And so, I called her and I was like, oh God, am I going to be able to hear this? I did hear it. And she said, oh, I wanted to tell you that you've won.
Oh, what a moment.
It was really crazy. I get asthma and I kind of felt like I couldn't breathe for a second. I was like, it's just, I don't know what I was expecting. It was very like, this really could be anything. It could be like, oh, we made a mistake. You're not on the shortlist anymore. Like all the way to like, yeah, you've won. And I just didn't know like what it could have been. And so it was really incredible.
I've not done the same. I haven't won any prizes, but that idea of they've made a mistake, they're going to take this away.
Yeah.
That really resonates with me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a horribly familiar feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've learned that that's very common to a lot of writers. You work so hard on it and then you get the rejections and you hear so many stories of rejections that you kind of think like, oh, it's going to be like years until anything happens. So yeah, it was crazy.
Did you I don't know, did you even work the rest of the day? Could you concentrate?
Oh gosh, yeah. Then I had to go back in and meet a deadline. And so yeah, I was under embargo. So they were like, oh, you can't tell people apart from your partner and your friends sort of thing. Yeah. So yeah, I just kind of had to like pretend that everything was normal and just work for the rest of the day.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So what was
in the
sorry,
afternoon?
Go on.
Oh, it was in the afternoon, so it wasn't too long of a day.
Hi listeners of the Book Deal podcast. My name's Emma Babington and I'm part of the 2025 debut crew and author of The Neighbours, which came out in July through HQ, part of HarperCollins. My novel is part psychological thriller, part family mystery, and the jumping off point for writing it was wondering just how far a person would go to protect their loved one, even if they suspected that person were caught up in something terrible. It begins with the suspicious death of a man called Dr. Richard Wellington at his local park while he's out running, and his neighbour Liv soon discovers her teenage daughter Gracie was there at the time and quickly gets the sense that something's not quite right, and she wonders if Gracie perhaps saw something or was involved in some way. For a number of reasons, Liv decides to do all she can to shield her daughter from the police investigation and then sets off on her own quest to find out who the murderer could be, all the while having this creeping dread that Gracie might have done the unthinkable and killed their neighbour. And there are a lot of suspects because it turns out Richard was not a good guy. The Neighbours is set in a harbourside Sydney suburb at the height of a scorching summer and asks if we can ever really know or trust the people next door. There are lots of twists and turns, and while it's a murder mystery, I hope readers enjoy what is above all else a celebration of female friendship and strength. Thanks so much to Natasha, Madeline and Tina for letting me come and talk about The Neighbours, which is available now.
So what was the timing between you finding out and then the announcement?
Yeah, it wasn't too long. I think it was only like 2 weeks or less.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's good. You don't have to hold it for too long.
Yeah. And in between, like I got to go to the Penguin office and, meet with some publishers and editors and the marketing team and they gave me my trophy and lots of books.
Oh my God, there's a trophy?
Yeah, it's actually well, obviously not from the podcast, but
Oh, it's a penguin, of course it is.
Yeah.
Gosh. So and you got free books, did you say?
Yeah, they gave me a bunch of Penguin titles, so the previous year's winners and just like a few other ones that were sort of popular at that time, and it was very nice. It felt very special.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge achievement. It's, well done.
Thank you.
So after the announcement, what happens or what happened next?
Yeah, so I think it was maybe a month later, we sort of started on structural edits. So should I sort of explain how to do structural? Yeah. So I didn't know anything about the editing process, but I learned along the way that you sort of go through like structural edits, which are usually moving around like chapters and then checking things like passage of time.
Yeah. And can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Had you and Meredith had a conversation before the prize was announced or at any point about what structural edits might be required if you won, or was that all done after you won it?
So on the phone when she told me that I'd won, we did kind of very roughly talk about a couple of little things. So it was things like Leiling's age. So initially when I wrote it, I wrote her as 10 years old. But Meredith sort of said like, she, you know, the way she talks and the things that she's doing sort of sound like a few years older. So that was kind of a big change. And then like there were other questions like, oh, how talented is she at violin? Because I guess it wasn't clear in those earlier drafts. Whereas I hope it's a bit clearer in the end product. Well, yeah, she's not very good.
She's not. Yeah.
Yeah. But she kind of thinks that she is. Yeah.
I mean, it's again very childlike, like that wishful thinking of, well, I am good. Yeah.
So those were the kind of main edits. Like structurally, it's very linear. So we actually didn't really have to move too much around. Those were the things that she kind of told me on the phone. And then later on, we kind of talked a little more detail about, more specific things.
So before you started the structurals, so you had to sign a contract with them?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And did you have an agent or did you have any support in terms of helping you, you know, not that you can't understand a contract, but just, making sure that you were signing up to things that you could deliver, etc.?
I did not have an agent, no.
Cool. So you sign this contract about a month after the announcement. She gets in touch and you start doing a structural edit.
Yeah.
So did she send you that first contact you had with her? I'm just getting very specific because it's just really interesting to see what happens behind the scenes after, you know, a winner's announced. So did Meredith kind of say, okay, I'm going to send you over my edits? Or was the first contact you had with her was, hey, here are your edits and you have this much time to get them back to me?
No. It was more the first one, that she kind of like probed me a little bit in advance that this will happen and these are the kind of the timings. Yeah.
And as part of the timings conversation, did you find out at that point the kind of projected publication date for Jade and Emerald?
Yeah. And like, I think because she felt that it was so like structurally sound, she thought that we didn't have to go through too many rounds of edits. And she said, it will be like a little over a year because at that time, I think it was June, when they announced it. And then the publication date was July of 2024. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. So do you remember how long it took to get through structural edits?
Well, you know, it's funny because in preparing for this podcast, I kind of went back and sort of like traced through my emails just to get a sense of how long things took. So it's a little fresher in my mind than it normally is. So structural edits were about 2 months.
That's really fast.
Yeah, well, I expected it to be longer, but it was just sort of one round of it, and most of the, like I said, the edits were about like her age and then the sort of passage of time. So making sure that, like, you know, I counted for things like school holidays and then the seasons changing. So, you know, that, you know, it gets colder when it's winter, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And so once you submitted your edits, was there then a bit of time when the editors went over it? How, what was that like?
Yeah. So I think like they did kind of like warn me that it would be sort of like the work would be with me for a while and then I'd send it back to them and then I wouldn't hear anything for a while because they'd be kind of working on it and then it'd come back to me and that would be the sort of like essentially the process. Yeah. And so I think it was like another month or so that it was like kind of quiet and I didn't really, sorry, I'm just calculating it.
Yeah. So, okay.
So I did the 2 months of structural edits and then sent it back to them and then they had it for 2 months before it came back to me with line edits. Yeah.
So by October, November, you were doing line edits.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the line edits did go on for, that was probably like the longest sort of stint of edits that I did. So that lasted until January. So what happened was obviously we had the Christmas break then and then I got COVID. So I kind of had to extend my deadline a little bit, but they had left like some leeway in their schedule. So ultimately the launch date didn't change. So that was nice. So Line edits were very close prose reading, checking things like dialogue as well. And then I had the opportunity to kind of add in more lovely poetic prose pieces, which I really enjoyed.
Nice, yeah.
And then around that time, we also kind of talked about covers. And I had like a sort of first pass of covers.
So when you say first pass, how much kind of involvement or how did they do that with you?
I'm told that a lot of authors aren't super involved in their covers, but going into it at that time, I didn't know how little involvement there would be. So I kind of received a few options for covers. And if I can be honest, like I wasn't really that happy with them. I guess like I had just had like a thought in mind about like covers that I liked. And I didn't necessarily feel that the ones I'd gotten were reflective of like what I wanted it to be. And so I feel very lucky because the team at Penguin really did kind of want to go back and forth with me on it. And so, yeah, they did kind of let me have a bit of input, and I could send over some references and things like that of covers that I did like and that I kind of wanted, like this sort of thing. Yeah. And so we landed on the cover that we have, which I really love.
Yeah, it's great cover.
Yeah. But yeah, there was like a little bit of back and forth. Yeah.
So at what point, so we're into 2024 now, so at what point did you kind of get told, all right, we're done now, proofread, it's about to go to print? Do you remember?
So I think that happened around April, May. So in between like the line edits and that, like we had a sort of first pages, which is like they essentially like print it, like, and it's kind of like in PDF form, but it looks like what it would look like in a book.
Oh yeah.
And so you get like another chance to kind of read it, and like you notice things that you don't notice when it's in a Word document. Things like sort of stick out to you differently when they're in that form. I don't know why.
I think it's because they typeset it, don't they? And you can see gaps and weird words, and I don't know, it just looks different somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then they printed the ARCs, advanced review copies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you got to hold one?
Yes, that was very cool. Although I was a bit nervous when they did that because I, like I was saying before, I'm very like, you know, I probably would never have let it go. So when they said, oh, you know, we're printing this, I was like, printing? No, I'm not ready. And then they were like, oh, you know, it's so that you can get like the quotes on the cover.
Oh, yeah, the cover quotes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, obviously to get reviews as well. And so, yeah, we did another round of edits and then the proofread. And yeah, and then it went to print in, April, May.
Yeah. So under like the prize terms, did you know, or did they kind of explain what your commitments were around publicity or?
Yeah, I think it was like, it said something like, oh, you know, a total of 2 weeks of publicity, but it's not like 2 weeks kind of blocked out at one time. It's sort of like spread over, you know, a few months.
And so what types of things did you do at that time when your book was out?
Well, the launch is probably the most like the sort of centerpiece of it all. Yeah. And like that's an event that we held readings in Melbourne, and Melanie Cheng hosted the launch.
Beautiful.
So yeah, and so we kind of had like a Q&A, and you know, I got dressed up and invited all my friends.
How was that for you? Like, did you have a good time? Were you nervous? Were you excited? All of it?
Yeah. It went by very quickly. Yeah, I was kind of nervous about it because, as I'm sure a lot of other writers are, like I'm an introvert, and you know, I had been sitting by myself essentially and like writing this for, you know, so long that suddenly it was in the world and I had to talk about it, and that felt really weird. Like, you know, kind of like having a lot of people look at me and ask questions about it. It is like quite different to what I'm used to.
And it's on the page, but it's no longer just a file on your laptop or
exactly.
Attachments on emails between you and your publisher.
Yeah. And it has been like great in its own way, seeing it out in the world and like, you know, hearing people like yourself kind of, you know, read it and have such nice things to say about it. It's really like, it's really rewarding.
Oh, that's really beautiful. So did they organize like a tour for you, or was the launch kind of the main event and then you did things around Melbourne?
I did a couple of different like events and interviews and things. So yeah, like I said, the launch was the main one, but I did also have podcast and radio interviews and some print as well. And then I went to Geelong for like a sort of little bookshop crawl. And I went to a few different bookshops and like did signings and met with people and stuff. And then I went to Sydney and I did a few events at like libraries and bookshops there as well.
And that was all organised by Penguin and like their publicists, right?
Yeah. So they were quite good at kind of reaching out to different places and organising things. Pretty much everything was organised through Penguin.
Yeah. And, so I don't know, like, but Penguin has the same, but, some prizes, the winner sometimes has to do like some media content or write something about what it means to win the prize, etc. Did you have any kind of obligation like that?
No kind of huge commitment. I did write like a few statements for like the press release and for the website and for things like when they opened the prize for the next year, talking about like how great it was to win it and like why people should enter it, that sort of thing.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And in your prize deal, does Penguin have an option like to look at your next book or?
Yeah, it's first option, but it's not like a 2-book deal. Yeah.
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 So for listeners who are not sure what that means, an option is where the publisher basically gets to see a manuscript first and can decide if they want to take it or pass, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so during all of that process of editing and then leading up to publication, were you working on something else? Were you kind of just focused on Jade and Emerald? What was that time like for you?
I was pretty much just focused on Jade and Emerald. I suppose like I shouldn't be surprised, but I was surprised by how much mental energy it took. Like not just the edits themselves, but the publicity was really quite like mentally taxing in its own way. And so like I didn't really have much other space to focus on other things.
Yeah, for sure. And because of work as well and
life.
Yeah. So what's life been like for you a year on? What's your writing practice look like? What does book stuff look like?
I mean, I've kind of been more doing kind of smaller pieces, so like opinion pieces or like short stories and things like that. I had a piece published on the Griffith Review Online not too long ago, and I also regularly write video game reviews for Nintendo Life. So that's sort of been like my writing kind of space at the moment. And as well, like in my kind of advertising life, I've had like a few kind of extracurricular advertising things I've been doing. So yeah, I haven't really kind of started on like a second book.
So do you feel any pressure?
Only kind of when I get the comparison bug, like sometimes I'll look at like Instagram and see like other authors kind of putting out things, and like I'm always excited to read books by authors I love. And so like I do feel like, if people really liked Jade and Emerald, like I'd really love to give them something else,
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I kind of had the opportunity to spend a lot of time on it and put a lot of craft into that novel. Like I'd like to do that with my second as well. You kind of don't necessarily want to be like pumping them out.
For sure. Yeah. So do you feel like you have the right headspace right, at the moment, or I don't know, inspiration to get started on something novel length, or are you kind of the shorter pieces that you're doing that they're really feeding you for where you are?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty good at the moment. Yeah, like I definitely want to write a second book. And like I said, I had like kind of other sort of very rough ideas. So it would be probably something that I've already thought of, that I just need to work out exactly what that story is.
For sure. So how would you say the prize has kind of impacted you?
It was amazing. I guess like when I started writing Jade and Emerald, or even before it, like I wanted to have a novel out in the world. And the prize let me do that. So yeah, I mean, like it was, amazing. And like because I had literally kind of gone into it thinking that I wasn't going to get published at all. It was really amazing that it happened, and so quickly, and with, such a prestigious publisher. Like it's still pretty like crazy that it happened, even though I know that it happened. I've got like proof that it happened. It still sort of feels a bit surreal.
Yeah, I get that. So in terms of any tips or advice that you would give to emerging writers now, what would you say?
I think never give up is a really important piece of advice. It's a cliche for a reason. I also think that it kind of works in like a few different ways. So obviously, there's the getting published side of it, as in like submit to lots of places and don't stop doing that kind of thing. But it's true that there are like so many avenues to publication. So it's like, I don't know if like anybody could ever exhaust every single avenue that there is before they get published. But I sort of think there's like a second level to it where like you never kind of give up on your writing. So if you like always kind of keep trying to better yourself as a writer, or like, read widely. And like, even if you're not necessarily working on like a novel like myself, like, if you're kind of writing other bits and pieces, or even just like journal entries, like I feel like that's like still a form of like not giving up.
Yeah, for sure. And and just a point that you made earlier about after you finished your mentorship and felt the manuscript still wasn't ready, for writers who have that same worry that, is my manuscript ready? And I know there's no easy answer because it really depends on the writer and the manuscript. What's your advice in terms of how someone could tackle that problem or that issue of, is this actually ready to submit somewhere? Like, what could they do to check it for themselves if it is or not?
I guess if you feel that like that's something that you're proud of, and that's something that you're willing to kind of like put your name to and say to a publisher, like, yeah, this is mine, like I wrote this, and, and to sort of feel proud of it in that way, I think that's a pretty good test.
That's a great test, actually. Yeah. I suppose if you're feeling self-conscious or embarrassed by it, then that could speak to that maybe it needs a bit more work or something, right? A bit more time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great answer.
Oh.
So I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on my monthly episode and talking to me about Jade and Emerald and your prize-winning experience. Congratulations once again. It's such a beautiful book and definitely well-deserved winning that prize.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been great chatting to you. Yeah, it's a great podcast. And I think that like it's always helpful for writers to kind of hear from people who have done it, because like that's how we all started out.
Exactly. We've all started out submitting somewhere and then some magic happens and you're at the right place at the right time and it just goes from there. So thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Book Deal podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the pod so you can receive updates as soon as our new eps drop. And to keep up to date with what the pod is doing, you can also find us on Instagram.